Good afternoon or good evening as it applies. Welcome to Open Classroom. I'm Janet Gilla, the Director of Professional Development for the Brown School here at Washington University in St. Louis. So glad to have you with us. For those of you joining on the Zoom webinar, chat features enabled, and we would love to continue to hear from you. Questions and comments are welcome during this program, so please do send in those thoughts as they occur to you. I want to extend a welcome to folks that are joining us on YouTube through the live stream or possibly viewing this as a recording later. We are not able to moderate Q&A through YouTube and wanted to make you aware of that. So before we get started, I just want to let you know we have one more program before spring break. We're back on the air tomorrow. That's Thursday, March the 10th. We're doing a program entitled Customer Choice Models versus Machine Learning, Finding Optimal Product Displays. That's a part of our Artificial Intelligence in the Social Sciences series. We would love to have you come back for that, or we're going to take a break for spring break, and then we'll be back on March 22nd. A couple dozen more programs planned before the close of the spring semester. Open Classroom is free and open to all, so we hope you will come back or consider sharing our programs with anybody that's interested. Today, our program is occurring on the heels of International Women's Day. And as we try to keep focus on both the gains that have been made and the distance to go, I think today's topic is particularly poignant. I'm joined by Laura Peer, Associate Director of the International Center for Child Health and Development, who's going to be moderating our Q&A. And now to get us started, I'm pleased to welcome Brown School Research Assistant Professor and ICHAD Co-Director, Dr. Praskovia Nabunya. Dr. Prasi?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Janet. Greetings, everyone. On behalf of ICHAD, I would like to welcome you to our speaker series. So the ICHAD speaker series brings together researchers, academicians, practitioners from all around the globe to talk about issues affecting children and young people in a global setting. So before I introduce our presenters today, I would like to let you know that this is our second last presentation for the semester. Our last presentation will be on Wednesday, April 13th at 12:30, and we'll be hosting Professor Juliet Sekandi from the Department of Epidemiology and Biostatistics from the University of Georgia. So she'll be talking to us about harnessing the power of digital technology to support and improve treatment outcomes in patients with tuberculosis disease in Uganda. So if you have time, please put that on your calendar so you can attend that presentation. So it will be April 13th. So now turning on to our esteemed presenters today, I'm privileged to introduce both Drs. Alice Boateng and Dr. Abdallah Ibrahim. So I'll begin with Dr. Alice. He is a senior lecturer in the Department of Social Work at the University of Ghana. She has been a social work both in the US and in Ghana. And you'll be happy to know that she graduated from our own Brown School with her MSW. Her research focuses on the well-being of marginalized populations, including women and children, and her practice areas include working with women, children, the elderly, and persons with disabilities. Together with our colleagues here at the Brown School, she collaborates as a co-investigator for 2 NIH-funded research projects in Northern Ghana. Dr. Alice also serves as a female traditional leader, and also known as the Queen Mother of her town. And she has been leading workshops for traditional leaders in Ghana are focused on women in traditional leadership, promoting sustainable development in communities. So welcome, Dr. Alice, to ICHAD Speaker Series. Next, Dr. Abdallah Ibrahim is a senior lecturer at the School of Public Health, also from the University of Ghana. His research interests includes access to healthcare among underprivileged and underrepresented populations, particularly women, children, and people with mental health challenges. Dr. Ibrahim has collaborated as the in-country PI on 3 NIH-funded projects focusing on behavioral health and child migration in Northern Ghana, collaborating with investigators here at the Brown School. He has previously explored mental health among people who are incarcerated in Ghana, migration for child labor, and smoking among school children. So both co-presenters today are going to talk about, the title of their presentation today is Dropping the Headpan for Better Education Opportunities. the case for girls in northern Ghana at risk of dropping out of school and child labor. And as Janet mentioned, so this is really timely because we are in the middle of celebrating International Women's Day, and we are going to hear about some of the issues affecting young girls in northern Ghana. So Dr. Alice, Dr. Abdallah, please take it away. And you on mute.
Yes, and it looks like Dr. Alice has been disconnected for some reason.
So do you like to start, and then whenever she joins, she can take over?
Yes, so the goal was to have her present her study first, and then we'll present the ANZANSI one second. So at this point, maybe what we can do is flip the presentation so that we do this first, and then once she's able to join us, then she can continue.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and good evening to those joining from Ghana and Africa and other places. As Dr. Prosi mentioned, we are presenting our study on dropping the headband for better opportunities, the ANZANSI project. Okay, so this is our research team from Ghana, and as well as our other collaborators at WashU. And as you can see, we have a really good research collaborative team here. And so we are glad, Dr. Alice and I are glad to represent the rest of the team in this presentation. So what is the ANZANSI project? The ANZANSI project is an innovative combination of intervention study that combines two evidence-informed study projects, basically using the economic empowerment intervention, as well as the MFG or multifamily group intervention that is focused on family functioning, parental beliefs, also girls' education, gender norms, and child labor. And why the ANZANSI study in Ghana? Ghana is one of the poorest countries in Africa, and also has a higher incidence rate of child migration, particularly for labor. And in this case, majority of child migrants that are usually embarking on this trek leaves the northern part of the country, which is the poorest part of the country, to the southern part, where they go to carry this headband loads, or what we call the Kayayei. And in most cases, they drop out of school to go and undertake this sort of initiatives. And this kind of work exposes them to a great number of risks, including dropping out of school to do so, poor psychosocial, mental health functioning, and also sexual exploitations. And the additional risk is that because these girls are very young, it has implications in terms of later maternal and child health issues. The ANZANSI study has two broad aims. One, to test the feasibility and acceptability of the ANZANSI family program that is tailored to meet the specific needs of targeted adolescent girls. Basically, looking at the preliminary impact of the project on specific outcomes such as school attendance, intention to independently migrate, family, financial stability, psychosocial, and mental health functioning. And the second broad aim is exploring the use of the multi-level factors particularly on individuals, families, and programmatic areas that impact the participation in and experiences within the ANZANSI program. In this particular study, we had recruited 100 adolescent and caregiver diets. And these participants were actually recruited from 10 different schools that were randomly assigned to 2 of the study arms, one arm being the intervention and the other being the control group. And so for the control group, they had 50 students, and then the intervention arm also had 50 students and caregiver diets. And our participant inclusion criteria included adolescent girls that were enrolled in school and living within a family unit. And we defined family more broadly as a collection of individuals within the home and a caregiver, not necessarily on a biological relations. And our participants included girls within the age of 11 and 14 that were capable of giving assent. And also those that had a history of skipping school or school absences in the past academic year with at least 10% of unexcused absences. And the caregiver inclusion criteria included self-identified as primary caregiver for that adolescent girl, and also being able to provide informed consent. And for our study arms, those in the control group, they got the education as usual, just like the treatment arm. And then in addition, they were also supplied with school textbooks and other school materials as part of the study. And then for the treatment arm, in addition to the education as usual, they also obtained school textbooks and other school materials, and also child development accounts that were set up, workshop on asset building, family income generation, as well as the MFG or multifamily group sessions. And I'll be going a little bit into detail on those issues. For the CDA or the child development account, each of the participants girls received the matched account, which was a savings account held in each of the child's name, and the caregiver was also attached as a co-signer. And this was actually opened at one of those public banks in Ghana called the Agricultural Development Bank, or ADB. And each month, each of the participants were expected to contribute the equivalent of $10 or $10 for 9 months of the intervention periods, which amounted to about $90 throughout the period. And then the study would match 2 to 1 in this case for every $10 that they save in a month, they would receive $20 in matching, so which amounted to $180 in matching. So in addition to the $90 that they would save, they would at the end of the 9 months intervention receive a total of $290. And the money is something that could be used to pay for their tuition or school uniforms, school fees, book supplies, and other things that are related to their education. Also, in addition to the child development accounts, they participated in the asset building and future planning. And this included a financial literacy and budgeting, and money management, setting financial goals, and the importance of budgeting. They also received the asset building and the means through which the asset building occurs, the banking services. And for most of these people, actually almost all of them, they had never had any experience dealing with the bank. So this workshop actually helped them introduce them to the bank, and also the idea of putting their money in a bank as a way of saving. And as part of the workshop, they also learned to identify the risk in terms of peer pressures, alcohol and drug or other substance abuses, and also negotiation and refusal skills for risky situations. And the third thing that the intervention group received was a multifamily group, or the MFG intervention, which was a 16-week session or 16 weekly sessions of 16 different topics. And these topics range from child labor, girls' education, rules for home, respectful communication, building families up, as well as good family practices. So these were sessions that were done on a weekly basis, and each week they would receive these sessions together as the child with the caregiver. And our data collection were collected in various intervals at the baseline or before the intervention started, after the intervention, which was at the ninth month period. And the next data follow-up is going to be 6 months. That would be in a couple of months, somewhere around May, June, July, thereabouts, depending on sorry, yes. So that's around May, June, after the 9th month, which would be the 15th month. And then assessments are also done, which focus on the demographics, the family social support system, family relations, psychosocial well-being, migration, gender attitudes, and work attitudes. In addition to that, some qualitative interviews were also done, which explored the participants' experiences with the intervention and key multi-level areas, particularly individual, the family, contextual, and the program level, and how those influences their program participation. So I'm just going to go through the preliminary findings from our baseline data, and hopefully we'll be able to get through this, and Dr. Alice would be able to present on the other part. So the first part of the preliminary findings is on the combined child and caregiver on the gender norms. So for this one, actually we'll be looking at the percentage of those who agree on the statement as they are below. So as you can see here, with regards to daughters, whether daughters should be able to work outside the home after they have children, you can see that a majority of them agreed all across the board. And should daughters have the same chances to work outside the home as sons? And overwhelmingly everyone agrees that that should be the case. And then with regards to the statements, I would like my daughter to be able to work outside the home to support herself. Almost 90 or more than 90% of the adolescent children and their caregivers agreed that this statement is true. And with regards to equity for girls, the percentage of those who agree with these statements, daughters should be able to work outside the home after they have children. And in this case, you can see the breakdown of the responses in terms of the children as well as the caregivers. And throughout these other statements, you can see that almost equally, both the children and the caregivers agree to that statement. And then moving on to the percentage of those who agree with the statements regarding the rights and privileges of men. I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but just pick on a few to highlight and for everyone to understand the kind of the gender norms that is happening within that environment. So for instance, a good woman never questions her husband's opinion, even if she is not sure she agrees with him. You can see that for the most part, majority of the caregivers agreed to that statement. And I just need to add some nuances here. In fact, a majority of our caregivers that participated in the study are women. So just want to give you that information as you listen to this outcomes. And then a woman has to have a husband or sons or some other male kinsman to protect her. In this case, more than 50% of the caregivers actually agree to that statement compared to less than about 40% of the children that agree to that statement. But when we come to areas such as if there is limited income or limited amount of money to pay for tutoring, something relating to school, it should be spent on sons. You can see the interesting outcome that we find here from the baseline data. In this case, it is rather the majority of the children that are agreeing to that statement. And also sons should be more educated than daughters so that they can better look after their parents when they are older. In this case, the majority of the children agree to that statement compared to their caregivers. And then moving on to the second part of the preliminary findings, attitudes towards school. And this data actually is related to only the child's responses. So in this case, with regards to school attitude, I am confident in my scholastic abilities. And our scale here was very well, pretty well, a little bit, not at all. And here you can see that for almost more than half of the responses were at least well. Particularly, I am confident in my scholastic ability. I am confident in my ability to succeed in school, and then I am successful. They all indicated that they all chose well. But when it comes to I do well in school and I learn new concepts quickly, you see that the students' responses were very well. And then moving on to attitude towards school itself, this is a good school. In this case, you would find that our respondents were choosing well rather than very well. And then I like school. It is also the same here. Less than 30%, or actually just about 25% were indicating that they like school. And then school is interesting. Just under 30% also indicated very well. And also, this is a good school. The same here, less than 30%. And I just want you to, this is to think about this outcome from the baseline data. This is the baseline data, and we can see that even though in the previous responses, they seem to have a very high enthusiasm about school, and yet when it comes to scoring themselves towards regarding attitude towards school, they seem to not have extreme confidence in that. So this is something that is very interesting that we may need to explore further and see, particularly since more data is coming out from the intervention study. And then with regards to peer attitudes, my friends take school seriously. Compared to very well, you see that those that are responding well are higher than very well. My friends achieve well in school, and this is where majority of them are responding very well. And then my friends study hard. not compared to the very well. Majority of them are saying well. Their friends study hard in school. And then most of my friends are planning to go to college. Majority of them chose very well. And moving on to the next section, which is also interesting in terms of their self-regulation or motivation. I work hard at school. And you can see that in comparison to their previous responses, most of them are indicating that they work hard in school well, not very well. And this run across the board in all these statement areas. I concentrate on my school. I am a responsible student. I complete my schoolwork. So almost all of them are indicating well, but not very well, which to me points to something, some underlying issues here. They seem motivated, and yet they don't seem to have so much confidence in working hard at school or concentrating on their studies at school. So what are the conclusions? As we indicated here, this is just a preliminary findings from the baseline, and the aim of our study is to examine the impact of the economic empowerment in combination with the MFG or the multifamily group intervention to see how it impacts on the education and health outcomes on for the female adolescents. And as you can see from the preliminary findings, the perception of these children and their caregivers differ when it comes to the rights and privileges of men. And yet we also did find that the children's attitude and perception towards school indicates that the child participants are more highly motivated about staying in school and were more inclined to have higher educational ambitions. And yet they have, in other responses, they tend to show that there seem to be some troubling signs that could be looming. And this is just a preliminary findings, and we hope to look deeper into the data as it comes in, and then we'll be able to share more findings. And thank you. This is brings us to the end of the findings, and I'm just going to share a few of our images from the field. As you can see to the right or to my right, Kingsley doing his interviews, and then this is one of the intervention sessions. And then after the end of the sessions, we handed out some certificates to both the child students and their caregivers that participated in the study. Thank you very much. And this is our funders and collaborators. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abdallah, for that excellent presentation. So as you may see, we are witnessing the challenges of conducting some of this work. So we lost Dr. Alice because her internet was disconnected. So we will postpone her presentation. Probably she will be scheduled, in the coming semester, probably in the fall. But before we launch into the Q&A, I'll take the first question. So Dr. Abdallah, would you please share with us your experience, adapting these interventions in Northern Ghana? So specifically your experience, with working with the banks in Ghana to implement the matched savings accounts.
So, well, it's thank you for that question. Very interesting question, because dealing with or adapting this intervention into a different environment, we noticed that it was really challenging, particularly dealing with the banks and specifically the bank that we chose to collaborate with. Agricultural Development Bank, which is a public bank. And our thinking before we actually went into this collaboration was that, oh, this is a public bank, a government-backed bank that is more spread out in even in urban and rural areas, and for that matter, it will be more friendly towards our study participants. So our anticipation was that things would move smoothly, but as we found out from the meetings that we held with them, it was easier to actually talk to them than getting things agreements on paper to get the account set up for all of our participant students and their caregivers as co-signers. So yes, I mean it was a challenging dealing with the banks.
Thank you so much. Laura, would you like to take it away?
I'm happy to help moderate our Q&A session. Yeah, please keep posting questions. We have kind of the luxury of some additional time to really use our time with Dr. Abdallah right now to really get to the heart of this study, because our program has shifted a little bit. So the next question in the chat is, great job. How did you go about conducting the assessments for these schools? Were they open to participate in the research?
Yes, thank you for that good question. Yes, the assessments were done at the schools, and prior to doing the study, we actually had to visit the Ghana Education Service and get permissions to be able to talk to the schools. And prior to doing so, we had to hold meetings with them and introduce them to the study, the objectives of the study, and what we hope to achieve out of the study. And once the Ghana Education Service and also at the local level, the Metropolitan Educational Service gave us the go-aheads, they actually informed the schools that were eventually selected randomly. That's researchers from the University of Ghana and WashU, the Brown School, would be coming. So that actually made things a bit easier in terms of us being able to get the schools to collaborate with us. And then they also, because they've had relationship with the parent caregivers who are also part of their PTAs, they were able to introduce them to this study and then let them know that we'll be reaching out. Of course, everyone has equal chance of being selected, but not everyone would be selected. So this made it easier for us to actually be able to do the studies within the schools because of the fact that we had the buy-in at the educational offices and also at the school level.
Great, thanks. I'm just going to keep going through our list of questions. They're coming in. This is great. This is from Professor Lesorgel. The attitudes towards school seem extremely positive from the baseline data presented. I do wonder how much social desirability might affect those assessments. You mentioned that there were troubling signs, though. Can you discuss what those were and how you were investigating those?
Yes, thank you for that question. Yes, I can, based on the baseline data, what I also noticed is they seem to be very enthusiastic, but as I mentioned, the troubling sign, I am looking at it in terms of the Likert scale that's were used very well, and pretty well. And you can see that, for instance, when we talk about ambition towards maybe going to college and then moving on beyond that, majority of them indicated that they and their friends were actually hoping to go to college. And yet, do you like your school? They were not very well vested in the schools that they are attending. They were also not very well vested in terms of their own studies. they weren't well vested in terms of completing their homework or school assignments once they get home. And the reason why I believe there are troubling signs is that once these kids get home, then there is a conflict between doing their schoolwork and also doing their house chores. And these are some of those factors that actually eventually lead to them dropping out of school, because if you are not able to complete your schoolwork at home and then you are not able to turn it in the next day, then you keep falling back and and eventually maybe just drop out of school and get into the kaya or the headpan job. So that is why I was saying, yes, even though they seem very well motivated, there were some troubling signs from the baseline data.
I'm going to add to that. How did COVID maybe play into any of these results, or how the study was, did it affect how the study was implemented, and then do you think that COVID had effects on the actual outcomes or preliminary findings?
So actually, I think we probably did the baseline before the COVID, and yes, the COVID did affect the start dates of the studies, and but because of our good collaboration with Basic Needs, they have been in the field doing work and dealing with the community. So they were very well prepared in terms of dealing with the schools, getting all those PPEs ready, and then negotiating to get spaces in such a way that they implemented social distancing so that interviews were done in a more safe and secure environment to not put themselves at risk, as well as the students and the caregivers at risk.
Thanks. And we have another question about how, what advice do you have to get students, to help students who are involved and are interested in doing this global work, and how can we mitigate the challenges that can come up to ensure the smooth running of interventions?
Can you say that? Can you say that again?
What advice do you get? You know what? Well, we have I'm gonna go back. We have a follow-up to the COVID question. So let's kind of go back there, and then we'll go back to Portia's question.
Okay.
So did the schools close during COVID, and how did that affect the project?
Yes, so schools closed during COVID because it was the government mandate that all schools should close. And so they weren't able to come into the building. But once they begin to see that the data was trending towards being able to open schools, then they give the go-ahead for students to be able to regroup, and then students were able to regroup and then were able to continue with our study.
Great. Thank you. And it looks like Dr. Alice has been able to join us. So I think right now we'll maybe take one last question for Dr. Abdallah, and then we'll let Dr. Alice give her presentation. And then if we have time at the end, we can kind of come back to Dr. Abdallah as well. But the question that we started and want to come back to is from Portia. With this challenge, what is your advice for students who are interested in global work, and how can we mitigate such challenges to ensure the smooth running of interventions? So advice for students and how to mitigate challenges.
Yes, I think what I would say is that it is a very interesting study, and I would encourage you, if that is the field that or the direction that you want to go in, to actually continue. And so to me, doing a lot of background work And as we found out, particularly in trying to establish the relationship with the banks, we had our own discussions with them, and we had a meeting and everything, but yet when it came down to actually implementing the agreement, it was very difficult. So I would say that building local relationships is key, and not just any relationship, but knowing the people that are able to point you into the right direction, let you meet the right people or community leaders that would be able to have an impact on in the community, and also that would affect your study. And mitigating these challenges it's similar to what I would say, just the relationships. And it is equally important if you are someone interested in doing a study in a particular area, to actually take the time to visit and meet with potential participants and talk to them before you are able to conceptualize whatever intervention you are going to implement. I think that would be very, very helpful in terms of getting it to a more successful end.
Great, thank you so much. That's some great advice. It's a good place for us to kind of transition and welcome again, Dr. Alice Boateng. Dr.
Yes,
Prosi.
it has been difficult here.
I was just going to say, Dr. Prosi made a beautiful introduction, but if you want to quickly bring Dr. Alice back, and then we hopefully will have a little time for questions, but you might have to give a slightly shorter version of your presentation, Dr. Alice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Dr. Alice, we have about 15 minutes. If you can just take us through your presentation, and then, maybe the major.
Yeah, Dr. Abdallah, can you share the screen again?
Yes, Dr. Prosi. Yeah, Dr. Prosi, I'll go ahead and share.
Yeah,
it's
difficult here. It has been raining and internet connection was cut off. So I had to go for a modem.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, so I'll see what I can do. So
okay.
Hello, everyone. This first presentation is an earlier study by a friend and myself. And the topic is the predicament of rural-urban migration in Ghana, the case of the visible but voiceless Kayayei girls. And I'm sure Dr. Abdallah has talked about these girls. So I'll talk about the background, the problem statement, just a little bit. Can we go, Dr. Abdallah? Oh. Asango. Oh. Yeah, so my study is an exploratory qualitative study that examines the factors behind the prevalence of girls migrating from the 3 northern regions to the south to indulge in unpaid labor involving the carrying of loads. And there are reasons for these girls migrating from the north to south. There are some push and pull factors that cause their migration. One push factor is poverty. Resources are not shared equally here in Ghana. And so poverty is more prevalent in the northern regions. So these girls come down south to the cities to carry load at the marketplaces for money. So our study was to understand the lived experiences of these Kayayei girls at a market in Accra, and then to understand the impact of the load carrying business on their overall well-being, and to identify policies or services needed to make positive changes in the lives of these girls. Next slide. So these are, okay. Northern region, as I said, is more impoverished than the southern region. And the picture there is map of the new Ghana map showing the regions. Actually, we used to have 3 regions up north, which has been divided into 5 regions. And these girls come from these regions. And the work that they do is also noted or seen as child labor, because it involves a lot of harm in doing it, and some also drop out of school to carry these loads. The research questions for this study are: what are the major reasons for the current migration of young females to the south? What are the impacts of the work or the head load carrying on their overall life being or well-being? What policies can make positive change in the lives of these women? Next slide, Abdallah. Yeah, and we actually adopted the integrative perspective from Cox and Power as the theoretical framework that looks at the global or diversity of people in the world, and as a result, there should be unity and then support and protection for each other. It also looks at the human rights issues that every person has the privilege to have. It also looks at the environment and how our environments influence our human behavior or our movement. For instance, these girls, they move down to the south because in their environment, resources are not all that available for them to be there and work. And then it also looks at the socioeconomic development, which if people have, then they will be able to be sustained. So according to the theories, all these 4 should come together to support people like the Kayayei. We, for the methodology, we used focus group interviews, selected 20 participants, young girls and adolescents, and then school dropouts, nursing mothers, and non-educated girls. The picture there shows the participants for this study. The key findings: poverty was seen as the major issue that prompted these girls to come down south to do the Kayayei. And then lack of opportunities in the north. They also needed marriage items, so they thought they would come here, work, and then get some money to buy items for marriage and also to invest. Then they had issues with working conditions, overcrowding. They lived in structures, 8 to 10 girls in one structure, so overcrowding. And one of their issues was public attitude towards them as they do the work at the market and meander through pathways. Sometimes their luggage would hit somebody, and that will cause anger. And female exploitation, the laws they carry mainly for females, and they exploit them because there's not any stipulated amount to give to them. but people just give them what they want to give them. Then safety issues, health issues, they sleep anywhere at all. Some of them sleep in the structures, and others sleep in front of other people's stores when stores are closed for the day. Then they eat nothing, anything at all, because they don't have time even to cook, so they buy anything at all. Some are sexually raped, abused, raped, and then we also identified perpetuation of the cycle of girl head load careers. That is, some of them are carrying loads with their children. Their children are there to help carry the loads, and they are not in school. Then some also abandon their children who are taken into orphanages. Then there is fear for their lives, because young men come into their sleeping or living places to harass them. The next. Yeah, so income and savings become a problem. They can't save. And even if they save, they give the monies to other people to save for them. And some of them even run away or squander their money. So saving issues, problem. Then lack of empathy towards them, not enough money to pursue education. So even if they earn some money, it is from hand to mouth. And temporary job becoming permanent, because it wasn't their vision to be doing this work, but they thought they could come in and then do work a little bit to get some money to continue education. But most of them, that didn't happen for them. And then lack of economic opportunities coupled with socio-cultural factors contributed to the plight of these women. Some of them, for example, are pushed into it by their own parents, asking them to come down south to work and earn some money to come and support them. So this study, we recommended among others that Ghana's girl head load careers be provided with vocational, educational, and employable skills to empower these women and girls. And this is where I see the ANZANSI project as a step in line with this, so that in our ANZANSI project, the girls are being given knowledge about savings. They are in school, they are kept in school, and so they will have better opportunities. And they're also motivated and will have better opportunities compared to these girls that we studied in Accra at the marketplace. And these are the examples of some of the powerful quotes from the study. Carrying load with baby on my back and meandering through pathways is the hardest part. And even with those with babies on their back, people don't often hire them to carry loads. They look at the woman or the lady and the baby and say, no, you have a baby at your back, so I don't want to hire you to carry my load. And they said it that as a result of that, they didn't earn enough. We don't really sleep. We fear being raped by men who walk around as our visitors, thieves and armed robbers. And then if we were offered good opportunities at home in the north, none of us would be doing this donkey job that does not have a future. So good opportunities like education, like savings, what we are, some of the things or assets the ANZANSI project portrayed. Yeah, so we come to the second study.
Dr. Ellis, thank you so much for presenting your findings. We don't have a lot of time for questions at this point, but I thank everybody for their flexibility. This has been a technologically challenging day for a lot of people.
I'm sorry.
No, it's, we're all here, we're all in this together. I think we have just a couple minutes, and there is one unanswered question from Annette, and I think it's kind of a nice question. I'm going to pose it to both Dr. Alice and Dr. Abdallah. As your closing thoughts, I think it's a good way to kind of wrap everything together and kind of share your own thoughts on, in your own words, how does ensuring an education to these girls, these participants, truly empower the community base on your study and the needs of an underprivileged group that has to make these hard life decisions so young? Dr. Alice, do you want to take that first?
Yes. When it comes to education, education does a lot. People are moved from poverty if they have education, or they walk through the educational ladder. And so some of us have walked through that ladder, and then we have been moved out of poverty. So it is in line if these girls are offered education, so that they would not decide that they are coming down to the South, because comparatively, there are better earnings in education than carrying loads for money. So the educational aspect is something that we should advocate, that we should lobby, that we should fight for vulnerable girls like the head load careers.
Yes, and Laura, if I may add, as Dr. Alice said, every single one of us that came from that environment, we came out of it because of education. And so, yes, I agree with the questioner. Education is really important. And so what we found from the ANZANSI project is that sometimes very simple things can be the push factors, and at the same time, those simple solutions can actually keep those girls in school. And why do I say so? Maybe it's just something as simple as a torn uniform that the kid had, and yet they cannot go to school with it. And the family doesn't have any savings that would be able to get them a new uniform. And for that matter, having something saved, regardless of how much it is, it may not be something substantial, but if it is something that they can put down to get a uniform, to get the girl back to school, it is going to be something that can keep them in school. Because right now, there is something called the school feeding program, which for most of the public schools, they are able to get some sort of lunch when they go to school. So if they are unable to get lunch at home, that alone is also another motivating factor for them to stay in school. But yet maybe that little thing like the either a textbook or the school uniform, or sometimes even sandals, can keep them out of school. And if the family has it, the minimal savings that they can keep in the bank, then maybe they can withdraw it and be able to buy the slippers or the uniform for the kid to go back to school.
Yeah, and I think the education should also go for the parents. Looking back at our ANZANSI project, see that the caregivers or parents were involved with their children's education, And the sections, the 16-week sections, they also participated. And so they also gained something, knowledge about education and about programs or services for their children. So when they are back in their homes, there will be a support for the children. So they too, it's important that we factor them into the education of their children.
And
Oh, I'm sorry. I was noting that we're at time, but I don't want to interrupt
Yes.
your last thought. Dr. Abdallah, please continue.
Oh, no, okay, I'll make it brief. I was just going to add that, I mean, as Dr. Alice said, from our observation during these sessions, these children were actually sitting on the same bench with their caregivers or a child and a father. Under normal circumstances, you wouldn't find that in our community, a child sitting together with their mother or with their father and either listening to something or maybe having a dialogue. But this ANZANSI project actually gave them the opportunity to create that bond within that 16-week period that we think it can sustain them even beyond the study. Because now the child can go back and be able to sit down with their father and tell them what challenges they face at school. And then the father or the mother would be able to, or the aunt, yes, will be able to provide any advice, wisdom of advice that they may have so that they can be encouraged to stay in school.
Well, Dr. Alice, Dr. Abdallah, thank you so much for presenting these findings. I think it's easy for people to talk about the importance of children staying in school, but understanding the economic disincentives that they sometimes have and what it takes to truly support them on a vibrant life trajectory. It's just so helpful and interesting. And we thank you for overcoming technology challenges to spend this time with us. And to our audience, we want to thank you for hanging in and hope to see you again very soon at another open classroom. Please stay healthy and safe out there, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your day or your evening as it applies. Take care and goodbye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity to share. We hope that it will be better next time.
It was good this time. It worked. It worked.
My
Goodbye.
God.